Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we're going to talk about genre blending, and we're going to talk about claiming glory. All right. So what I'm going to talk about today is specifically genre blending, which is a concept that I learned about at Philcon 2019. Philcon is a really nice, small, local science fiction writers convention that's held once a year in my area. And this is all the way back from 2019. I heard this panel and I took notes on it, and I wanted to do like kind of a breakdown of what they were talking about, but I was just so blown away, and there wasn't even enough space in my head for what they were saying. It's a huge concept, and we're just going to touch on it lightly today. But let me explain what this is. So this is really about a book called Station 11, and the reason, and also literature and science fiction and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So let's get into this. So here's where this all lands. It's pretty fascinating, actually. So basically, you have so this book came out called Station 11. I think it's about 4 or 5 years old now, and the reason why we're talking about it right now is they just made it into a television show, and it's released on HBO Max, and I watched the first 3 episodes of it. And it reminded me, I read the book because it was recommended on Slate Political Gabfest. And I read the book, and I was like, that's an interesting book. And then I heard that these 3 people at Philcon 2019 talk about it. Shannon O'Shea, okay, KARALYN Morris, and Eric Palmer. And it was by far the best panel that I've ever seen at any Philcon. It was mind-blowing. So here's the concept. So Station 11 was written, and the author of Station 11, I wasn't aware of this because I don't really follow literature that much, but the author of Station 11 won accolades and a significant number of awards, right, for writing Station 11. Station 11 is a genre blending work. It blends 2 things. It blends science fiction and literature, okay? Literature is its own genre, okay? Now, what do I mean by literature? Well, because it's tricky. Everybody knows what I mean when I say sci-fi, but it gets a little more blurry when I say literature. Literature is specifically written novels, fiction novels, that are purported to be cream of the crop, high culture, right? They have purple prose. They're written in a specific way. They focus on character rather than on plot, generally, and they're written like. And basically, in many ways, when it comes to fiction, literature is almost synonymous with high quality. It's like artisанal. Like artisanal. It's like artisanal fiction, right? Very high end, right? Like this is the Napa Valley wine, not the wine in a box, right? And so that in the world of books and novels and reading, that's the issue, right? Is you get this situation where basically when you're dealing with literature, people are like, oh, this is the Napa Valley, smell the nose, it has a bouquet, right? And then when you get to science fiction, the reading world is like, oh, here's some box wine, just swig it down, right? And here's the issue, right? So Station 11 is written, and what it is it's just a science, it's a bog standard science fiction concept, which is post-apocalyptic science novel. But then this person comes in, the author of Station 11 comes in and says, ooh, I wrote this in a literature style. And the literary world went bonkers for this book. They gave it all kinds of accolades. They gave it fantastic reviews. They gave it tons of recommendations, and they gave it awards, right? And so, and if you weren't paying attention to the literary world, you didn't, as a science fiction fan, you didn't care, right? Here's the problem, okay? Then science fiction fans are like, wait, what's happening over here? And they look over and they're like, are you kidding me, right? All this person did was just take take a science fiction idea, post-apocalyptic science fiction novel, and rub literature on it, and now they get a bunch of accolades, they get recommendations, they get a television show, they get awards. This is insane, right? We've been doing, science fiction has literally 100 good post-apocalyptic books, right, that are way better than Station 11 ever was, right? So you get into this issue of genre blending where a bog standard post-apocalypse science fiction concept is lauded. Oh, such a good job. Oh, like, and it's just given so much attention, and science fiction people are like, what the figgity, like, this is not fair. Like, what's going on here? We've written tons of these that are way better than Station 11 that are much more complex. And the reason why is the reading world, the review world, right? Literature. Ooh, the Napa Valley bouquet. Oh, you have science fiction over there? Well, you can go drink your box wine in the corner, right? And so, now what's really interesting to me about this is when the science fiction community figured out what had happened, there were a lot of, and actually Shannon O'Shea, KARALYN Morris, and Eric Palmer were like, this ain't right. Like, we're not, the science fiction community is not getting its due, right? And I was blown away. I didn't even know this issue existed. This panel blew my mind, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a problem. Like, there's a lot of prejudice toward science fiction novels. This isn't right. This shouldn't have went down the way it went down, right? And, so it was really fascinating to me. Now, where does this connect with Dungeons & Dragons? It's the same thing, right? But here, it's the same thing. But the problem is the science fiction community is like, hey, we write transformative stuff. Literature is not the only group that transforms lives and touches people in a way that is truly deep and meaningful, right? And, and science fiction is like, we make transformative stories that impact people's lives and are deep and meaningful to them, right? That change lives, right? And the science fiction community is like, why aren't we getting our due? Now, where we are, as the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition community, we are the direct now inheritors of Gary Gygax's legacy, right? In my humble opinion, his legacy is unbound identity, unbound immersion, right? These incredibly transformative, life-changing approaches to story, right? What we're doing is incredibly important and is deserving of accolades, awards, television shows, everything that is connected to quality, right? But the difference here is, unlike the science fiction community, the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition community is like, we just play a game. It's not important. We don't deserve the accolades. We're not transforming people's lives. We're not making sure that people read hundreds more or maybe 1,000 more books than they would in their lives. We're not telling people that their independence, that they should be independent, that they can be heroes. We're shooting. It shoots and ladders. Doesn't matter. We don't matter. It's all small. It's all a game. It's nothing. Why? Why are we, as the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition community, not saying, we have what Gary brought, the most powerful, transformative narrative engine ever created, right? We can give people extra life. We can make sure that people can escape the bounds of poverty, that they can escape the bounds of lack of education, that they can escape the bounds, the restrictions that are put on them by their race, by their preference, by their all these problems of life. Gary gave away to get past them. It's incredibly important. It's transformative. What we do matters, right? And the science fiction community, when they saw that what they deserved was given to the Station 11, author undeservedly, right? Because there's if you look at Station 11, you're like, oh, it's a box standard post-apocalyptic sci-fi story rubbed with some literature on it, right? And this is going to be like applauded and like raised up like some kind of special thing. There's 100 science fiction authors that have done this better and never got a New York Times book review, right? Like, and so that's my point, is we have got to claim our glory. We have got to stop telling people what we do doesn't matter. It does, right? We have the ability to change the world with what Gary gave us if we have the courage and the willingness, right? And if we can escape our own low self-esteem, right? And that's what I'm saying, right? So Shannon O'Shea, KARALYN Morris, Eric Palmer, brilliant book writers, reviewers, creators, and they have some incredible ideas on genre blending. And actually, to be clear, I told you what I understood from that panel. What they were talking about was so deep, right, that I'm positive there were like parts that went over my head, right? Like it's this is a massive, massive topic, right? And I think it's just right there next to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Check out their work. I'm really very excited about what they presented then. And I'm really starting to, I really want us as a community, as the Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition community, to say, we are it. We're the whole ball of wax, right? We get and value the old. And we are, and we also have the courage to interact with every single cultural aspect with the product. We're not afraid to deal with the real issues of cultural relevancy today within the bounds of Dungeons & Dragons, and make sure that Dungeons & Dragons is hitting people right where they need to improve their lives, right? And we have to claim our glory and say, we're as important as rap music, we're as important as literature. What we do matters, and it impacts lives, and it transforms people, and it makes people better, and it can replace things. It can replace things, right? There's so many cultures out there, like, sports fans and all these other people are like, oh, what we do is important. We transform lives. What we do is meaningful. And I'm just so tired of people saying, we're just playing chutes and ladders when we roll up to the game. Like, what we do can never impact people beyond the table. It shouldn't. All of our joy and our experience, it's just fun for the three people at the table. We don't have what it takes to change the world with what Gary gave us. You're wrong. We do. Let's claim our glory. Exactly the way the science fiction authors and reviewers came and said, we're claiming our glory, right? Like this Station 11 book is getting what's ours, right? And they came and said, hey, this is wrong, right? And I agree with them. I think, it's time the world stopped treating sci-fi like it was box wine, right? It's just as good as the Napa Valley grapes of any literature, right, that's out there. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.